Welcome to the August 23rd, 2025 Saturday Morning Coast Meetup. This is actually an open discussion today. We don't have anything really scheduled, but folks, anyone can kind of present whatever they'd like. Wanted to talk about basically two things this morning. First is we have scheduled the Fall Coast Meet. This will be at the South Bay Railroad Historical Society October 5th, which is a Sunday. Unfortunately, they're open this time of the year on Saturdays. We may actually at some point want to think about changing our schedules so we're during the time when they're not open on Saturdays, but during this time they are open on Saturdays to the public. So we'll do our meetup there on Sunday. The planned agenda is to do some clinics from 10 to 12. We can actually have 3 clinics. You know, there's the bigger front room. We can have 2 clinics in there. And if we have a clinic to fit in the boardroom, we can do that as well. So we can have either 2 or 3 clinics for the day. We'll also have model displays. I'm hoping we can get some folks to bring in their models and display some models. We have some space to do that at the event. And then we'll do lunch at about noon. And then we're planning on having some open layout tours. I am going to talk to Jack Burgess about being open. This may be the last time we have kind of a South Bay event where we have the opportunity to have him open during the event this year, depending on what he does in 2026. He is planning on taking the layout down in 2026, and there's still a number of potential disposition options for the layout. I talked to Jackie about that. But this would be a great opportunity to see the layout for one last time or see it for a first time if you haven't. So the other thing I had today was basically.
Hey, Phil.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to be going up to the city in a couple of weeks. I guess Kevin Shanahan, who's donated things to PCR in the past, has some more things. So I'm going to be picking those up, and we'll see. There may be some freebie giveaways that we can have at the meet.
Oh, cool. That sounds great. So, yeah, I think it should be a good meet. I mean, it's a good time to meet, a good time period to meet in. So we will plan on having a get together then. Sorry, I'm getting ready for doing this other share here. Cool. So one of the things we were going to do is I was going to do a couple of videos here. And these were from the NMRA convention. So we have 2 of them today to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in first because I think it's better than having our conversation and doing them at the end. So if there are no objections, I'm going to go ahead and play these 2 videos. So these were 2 videos from the 2025 NMRA convention. This is the first one. This is by a guy named Baron Blumenstein. Very interesting layout. He had what he claimed to be the world's only wonkavator. And you'll actually see that it's a crossing in his layout instead of having a drop down. So go ahead and watch this little video. So this is a 35 by 20 foot basement. And this is that television screen application that has a battery powered boat that follows it. And I apologize, the video in this is pretty jumpy. I was kind of bouncing around quite a bit in his layout. This is his wonkavator. We'll come back and see that in a moment.
All right. Now, let me explain. It's been damaged from being used so many times today. I hit the bridge and knocked it over the line. Here's the problem. That's a flipper. One track, one level works fine. But if you have multiple levels, you can't do it. The geometry doesn't work. And I have 3 levels crossing the aisle here. So one day I'm watching the movie Willy Wonka with the Chocolate Factory, and Gene Wilder is talking to a kid at the end where the kid gets on the elevator with him, and the kid says, "This is a neat elevator." And Wonka says, "It's not an elevator. An elevator only goes up and down. This goes up and down, forward, back, right, and left. That's the Wonka Vader." And I'm thinking, that's the solution to my problem. I just need to build a Wonka Vader. How the hell do you build a Wonka Vader? And that's what you're seeing here. So the way this thing works is it will drop down and then pneumatically retract into the bench rail. So I'm clear and I've got multiple legs. It's a very deep alignment. I've actually broken the bridge where we're used to it. But I'll give you a sense of it. So if you're ready.
I'm ready whenever you are.
I'm going to roll it down. Again, the bridge may catch and get out of the way. Straight down and pneumatically retracts into the bench rail. That's the world's only model railroad block.
One of the things he commented on was using tie wraps for connecting his electrical on, and it made it easy when you put new wires in or had to do troubleshooting. And so then the second one's actually interesting also. This is a club, and they are in southern Michigan, almost to the border with Ohio. And it's called the Blissfield. It's in a little town called Blissfield. And from what I could tell, it was a small agricultural town. They're actually in a building that's right off the main street that used to look like some sort of commercial building. And been there and built absolutely, I thought, an excellent, outstanding club layout. Very operationally focused too. There's quite nice steel mill complex here, which obviously, because of the area, is quite appropriate.
Scenery is really nice.
Yeah, it's very well done, and they have helixes that are inside this mountain back here in the back.
It's really a nice finished area club.
Yeah, it's very well done. I thought it was, and of course they have having a triple deck layout from an operational perspective. They have a lot of space, and you can see staging in between the lower and up second level there as well.
Do they have stools to sit on when you operate in the lower part?
Yeah, they seem to have some stools around. And then, of course, that's a platform to get to the upper level. And it's clear they see a lot of CP rail in that area. They're apparently fairly significant in moving traffic in that area of Michigan, Ohio.
Nice long trains.
Yeah, I thought it was just a very well done club layout, and well laid out, and then well scenic, and clearly set up for operations. So this is one thing I thought was kind of interesting. They had a board with pictures of their members on it, which I thought was quite nice. But one of the things that was amazing was look how many younger members there are there on the board. So, one of the things they're really doing is doing a good job of attracting and retaining modelers, not just in their teens, but into their, 20s and, looks like 20s and 30s. So all in all, I thought that was a great club. So that's kind of all I had today. Go ahead and throw it open for anyone to talk about the modeling they've been doing, activities that are interesting, just open discussion.
The one thing that's a little bit interesting in that video, there was a freighter on the lower level under the steel mill labeled
Yes.
Cleveland Cliffs. That was actually a real ship. I don't remember all the backstory, but supposedly the steel mills couldn't get the iron ore fast enough, so they actually bought and had made a ship, and that ship plied the Great Lakes for quite a few years just to get enough iron ore to run the steel mills.
Yep. Yeah, it's really clear in that area why industry developed there, because you had all those critical ingredients readily available. And of course with the lakes, the way to ship them around.
The Michigan iron ore shipments by boat, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, all of that. That was really quite a big deal back there.
Anybody got any great modeling to show? Don't need a great modeling, can be mediocre for that matter.
Now you're talking about my level.
Oh,
I don't have anything that's modeling, but I have something else.
Go for it.
Okay, so this has to do with Golden State. And right now, we're working on a policy for minors and at-risk adults. And it's something that the NMRA actually does have a policy on, because we want to make sure we protect the club when it comes
Yep.
to, people like that. We don't want to become the Boy Scouts and have problems in that issue area. So we first pulled up the NMRA policy and we looked at that. And next we're going to pull up the Boy Scout policy to take a look at that.
Larry, let me show my ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
What are we protecting or doing, or what are the policy intents? I don't know any background on this.
Okay, so we're thinking about adding a minor as a member through the parent. All right. So the one thing, like with Boy Scouts have got in trouble because sometimes there was one-on-one interaction between a scout, adult leader, and a scout. And so they put in a policy in place. The Boy Scouts have what they call 2 deep policy, where you never have a child or scout without 2 adults present. That's one thing. And on our model railroad, we have areas where, a single adult and a minor could be together and nobody would see them, hidden under the layout, for instance. So we need to protect ourselves when it comes to that kind of stuff. So we're trying to develop a policy that we can follow. For instance, the NMRA policy says that a minor has to always be in line of sight with their parent or guardian. They can't become out of sight and be with like another member. Because when we have somebody join the club, we assign them a mentor. So in this case here, we're having the mother join the club so the son can be there to run trains. But we have no policy about line of sight or anything like that. So that's what we're trying to do, is to develop that kind of stuff to protect ourselves so we don't get into legal trouble.
Hey, Larry, do you know Bryn Eckert?
No.
Okay, I should fix you up with him. Bryn is a corporate lawyer. He's also very involved with La Mesa. And La Mesa down in San Diego is doing the same thing, trying to bring minors in. And this is the whole discussion and the issues they're having also.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'll get you guys hooked up on email and you can chat, because they're having the same problems.
Oh,
So-
good. Thank you.
so-
Appreciate that.
So we actually went through the same thing at ACCRS out in Pleasanton, because we do have a number of junior members, and they're actually not, they're members through their parents, the same way you've discussed. So La Mesa doesn't allow anyone under 18 to be in the club area, period. And so Bryn, I talked to him a bit and kind of, so there's a California state law, and I'll pull the code up and I can put it in the chat. And it actually talks about organizations that provide services to minors and about basically the training and record keeping you need to have. What we did was we went through it at ACCRS. We actually went through that and looked at it. And what we concluded was they have a definition of the people that need to be in this record keeping. And it's things like counselors and, leaders and that kind of thing. And it really doesn't apply because we're not a youth services organization with the same group of people. But what we have done is we've basically said exactly what you said, is that the parent is the club member. The child is actually an associate of the parent. And we require the parent to be in the club 100% of the time with their child. And we've actually had some parents that were kind of what I'll call drop-off parents. And what we do is we just have a conversation with them, explain to them that they have to be there. And it's not that we don't like their child. It's not that we don't trust their child. It's that we need to do that to protect the club from any issues that might arise. So I think if you have a...
So I was going to jump in, Phil. I've been working with Bryn on this for almost a year, trying, because they wanted to have kids in at at La Mesa. And there's a couple of issues. And the reason he was calling me is I managed a youth soccer group for a dozen years or so, dealing with kids, parents, volunteers, and so on. It's not the same thing, but I was familiar with two things. One is California laws around adults and kids, and they're very restrictive.
Yep.
Yes, for the safety of the kids, but it also is heartbreaking because kids can't have any fun anymore, it seems, because there's so much crap around that. And the other, of course, is I was familiar with lawsuits that our soccer league had entertained over the many years. And you wouldn't believe the bizarre lawsuits that people will file. Whether they have merit or not, they cost the organization money and they can tank an organization. And so Bryn has been going over this for at least a year with La Mesa. Why they ended up with 18 or over simply is they couldn't come up with a scheme that satisfied them that they could have minors, even with parents accompanying them. And so that's why I just wanted to jump in, Larry, because I don't want you guys to suddenly, I hate to see the club get screwed because of some really stupid incident. I mean, like in soccer, you've got these little 5 and 6 year olds running around and the coaches can't hug the kids, which I think is heartbreakingly stupid. But that's the kind of crap that you've got to deal with. So I don't want to rain on the parade, but I just want you to be really careful and talk to Bryn.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It really is heartbreaking. We want to bring in younger people into model railroading, but if you're going to start stifling them when they're really interested, which is usually below 18 is when they're interested, then
so how you can get around, I shouldn't say get around this, how you deal with it, and this is what they weren't ready to do at La Mesa, is every adult, which means every member of the club who may be in contact with the minor needs a background check. All right. And Bryn said there are lots of guys who were casual members at La Mesa. They didn't want a background check. They felt that was an intrusion of their privacy, which it is. But that's what we ended up doing in our soccer, youth soccer. Everyone is back. And I had people at registration wanted to bring their kids into play. They refused to get a background check. I had to say, sorry, your kid can't play. It's a real nuisance, but it is something if your members really wanted to do it. And it's not like you can just say, well, only the members that are going to be with kids get background checked. No, because there's no guarantee that at any particular event, someone who's not checked is there. And next thing you know, you got hot water.
Yeah.
So by the way, just come back. I talked to Bryn also about this, and between us, I always feel like when you talk to lawyers, you get that really strict interpretation of the law. So I'm going to put this up. This is from an organization that talks about, this is the AIR overview. And this is what we found is that when you look at the law talks about the training and background checks. And what it says is administrators, employees, and regular volunteers must complete training on identifying and reporting child abuse. And regular volunteer is defined as someone 18 or older. And it's this key that they supervise children for 16 hours per month or 32 hours per year. And the same for the background check. And so our conclusion was that by telling the parents that they had to be there 100% of the time to supervise their children, we were not allowing any of our adults to supervise the children. So therefore, nobody fell into the category as defined by the law. So that was kind of our conclusion as to why, in other words, if a child is left alone, then you have the issue, because if they're, if you have a member and a child working together, then that member is supervising the child. But as long as the parent is there with the child, then the member is not supervising the child. And that was kind of the logic we went through. We did have a long discussion about this because between us, I went to La Mesa and I saw the signs at La Mesa and I was quite concerned and came back quite concerned. I think the challenge at La Mesa is that it's such a big club and the way they operate, they maybe didn't feel comfortable with the parent, requiring the parents to be there 100% of the time with their child. But I agree with you. It's unfortunate that this has happened.
Yeah, particularly when you're requiring a parent to be there with a 17-year-old.
Yes. No, exactly. It
and what's funny about it is it's easy to blame the lawyers, But I'll tell you, the problems we had with the soccer league weren't the lawyers; it was the parents.
Oh.
The parents were the ones who initiated incredibly foolish, or my opinion, incredibly foolish or inane lawsuits over ridiculous things. But it doesn't matter. The league ends up having to protect itself, and
Right.
it could kill. It's expensive. It could kill an entire club. One lawsuit.
Mhm.
Well, yeah. Well, and of course, there at a soccer club, you're doing practices, and there's kind of an assumption
Right.
that parents are going to bring the children and leave
And
them
drop
at
them
the
off.
practice, right? And we've just had to go to our adults. And in fact, one of the things I've been encouraging our club to do, and Larry, this is what I would do in your club.
Mhm.
One of the things in our club, there's an O side and HO side, and all the young people are on the HO side. So the O side really doesn't have this issue, quite frankly, because we don't have any young people. But what I've encouraged the HO folks to do is to write a contract that the parents actually sign that explains their responsibilities as a parent guardian of a youth member. That basically says they have to be in the club, they have to be within sight of their child at all times in the club. And I agree with you, for a 17-year-old, it's very unfortunate. But unfortunately, as we've seen, people took advantage of organizations in the past that didn't have processes in place to protect young people, and that's kind of been well established, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, in our club, like I said, we're entertaining bringing a young, and he's about 12 years old, into the club. His mother said she would become the member, which
Yep.
is fine. But here's the thing: she's offered to help in the club. So, like for instance, we have a library. She's offered to come in and help with the library when she brings her son there. Well, she does that. She's away from her son because the son's with the layouts, and she's down in the library. So
Right.
that has
She
to be
can't,
addressed.
yeah, you can't do that. She
No.
has to be, literally within eyesight of their child at all times.
Well, that's what the
And
NMRA's policy says. They have to be in line of sight.
yep.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's just because somebody who
Yeah.
shouldn't disappears with the kid for 15 minutes and something unpleasant happens, and
Right.
shit happens.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, and you do have to protect yourself. I mean, what our conclusion was as a club is that all it takes is an accusation of inappropriate touching, and you guys are in the kind of the same position we're in. You're in a public facility. That kind of an accusation probably is the end of the organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not even about a lawsuit. It would never even get close to being a lawsuit. It would just be, you would immediately get evicted from your space.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about that. But you're right. We are in a public facility, the East Bay Regional Park District, and yeah, even an accusation. Yeah, okay. Thank you for bringing that up, Phil.
The club that was at the San Mateo Fairgrounds for years had one event. This is a long time ago, and they were booted out of the fairgrounds. And so you do have to be careful.
Yeah, thank you for that. So anyway, that's the thing I just thought I'd bring up, and I'm glad I did. And thank you for for the help. And Earl, thank you for connecting me with Bren.
Sorry to
Well, I'm
rain on your
glad.
parade. I don't think we've given anything positive here, but Charlie and I and other people have had these conversations with Bryn, and there's issues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hate raining on the parade, but I sure hate to get you screwed too.
yeah,
Yep.
no, but I mean, that's the reason I brought this up. Your experiences in the other clubs and having somebody legal we could talk to, that's all going to help. So help us put this together and how we're going to handle it.
Well,
I
I'm
think
glad you did too, Larry, because I'm in the Walnut Creek Club and we had a youth member. He's now turned 18, so now he's a full-fledged member. But his mother joined, and I never thought about the whole line of sight business. So that was really good to think about. I'm going to bring it up at the board meeting.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is really sad is, and I'm going to say this like some of us, or maybe most of us, a lot of the young people we see are somewhere on the autism spectrum. And, you know, the being in an environment like a club where they interact with people is, I think, very psychologically helpful and good. And, you know, it's not just the model, you know, getting the model railroaders young to be model railroaders. It's an activity for young people that lets them get into an environment where they interact with people in a defined way that may be hard in other social situations. So I think that's very unfortunate to use. I'm sure parents, a lot of those children see it as being very, very much an advantageous thing to do. So yeah, and that's why we had a long discussion, because we had some members that kind of were like, we don't like kids here at all. And we basically, you know, kind of came back and said, no, you know, we think it's really important, not just for model railroading, but for the young people in their development. And some of them have become, quite frankly, are better at operating the railroad and doing other things than some of our actual members. So
There was a useless, there was an article at one point, which speaks to your point, Phil, about kinetic toys. The idea that kids are autistic kids, but also non-autistic kids, they don't play with erector sets anymore. They don't play with kinetic toys. And that's why the model railroading was a positive thing. You ended up with actually things that moved, that were physically real, not a screen.
Yeah. Well, I know when we have open houses, if it's not too crowded and I'm running my train around the layout and I'm not going to get in anybody's way, I'll go out in the walkway with my controller and find a little kid and say, hey, you want to run my train? And boy, they love it. The parents love it. And, you know, it just makes them all happy and involved in model railroading in a little small way. Of course, like I said, I have to keep out of the other members' way because they don't see it that way sometimes.
that was a good topic, Larry. I think it's something that we all, you know, all of us that are part of clubs, and there are a lot of us that are always need guidance about.
Yeah. Well, thank you all.
You have to think about this stuff. If you can't even invite somebody under 18 to an operating session in your home.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, Ken. If it's in your home, it's not like it's an organized club. The problem is the club is an organization. I think, you know, obviously you're allowed to invite people into your home. So I think you're okay at an op session as long as it's, you know, essentially friends and family, right? It's friends and it's not, you know, nobody's paying dues. There's no organization to go after effectively. So I think you're okay there. I checked that with Bryn too. I haven't actually had that conversation with Bryn, but because we've had younger people at our operating sessions, and I don't think it's an issue. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, NMRA policy actually addresses that. They said that no sponsored, you know, activity, just like something like an op session, can be sponsored or even construed as being sponsored by the NMRA.
Well, yeah. So, but you know, when a couple of people invite you over to operate your layout, that's not an NMRA.
No.
You may be an NMRA member, but you know, that's not it's not advertised on an NMRA website or anything, right? It's not open. It's private.
Yep. Well, you know, some lawyers, they'll go, because you're an NMRA member, they'll try to attach you, you know, the NMRA to it, and they're saying, nope, you can't do that.
Yeah, true.
All right, back to modeling.
Quick question: is anybody else going to the narrow gauge convention in St. Louis in a week and a half? Am I the only one? Guess so.
Hey, is there a Great American Train Show coming to Pleasanton? I thought I saw something about that.
It will be the 13th and 14th. I think it's the 13th and 14th of December. It's to my mind, it's the ideal time to do a train show, the right before Christmas. But yeah, it will be the 13th to 14th and in the at the fairgrounds in Pleasanton. And then the February one, which used to be in San Jose, there clearly was something happened last year because it was scheduled in San Jose and it got canceled in San Jose. And there was something about that facilities weren't available or something like that. But this year, that event is actually going to be in Vacaville at the or at the in Vallejo, excuse me, not Vallejo, not Vallejo at the whatever the fairgrounds is up there.
Oh yeah, that's by Marine World, or what was Marine.
But yeah, exactly.
I used to volunteer regularly for these Great American Train shows, and I think we got some members out of this. We had some enjoyment and that sort of stuff. And I would like to talk to somebody that in our group about having a presence at the train show.
So we, Jesse, absolutely. In fact, I'd be more than happy to have you be the
I knew that
leader of the train shows.
I knew that was going to. You don't know I bit my tongue.
But between us guys, the reason is Pleasanton for me is a disaster because I've got the combination of getting the ACCRS club ready, doing the ON30 modular group, and getting ready for the NMRA. So what we do is we get almost always we get 2 tables from, and they're 8-foot tables. We get 2 8-foot tables. And I'll find a picture if I pause for a second. I can't talk and search at the same time. I don't bifurcate that well. But what we do is we have drapes for the tables. We have black drapes that go over the tables so they look nice. And we set up that background tabletop booth thing we've got. It's an 8-foot booth that sits on the table. We've got a banner that talks about why you want to join the NMRA. And basically what we've been doing this has been the past 2 years, 2.5 years, is we've been using it predominantly as a recruiting mechanism. My kind of thought process is that the whole Great Train Show is there to promote model railroading. What we're there to do is to recruit model railroaders to be NMRA members. What we do is we focused on the 4 benefits of NMRA membership. We went through a project at a PCR level. Frank was involved with this about 2.5 years ago. And we tried to distill NMRA membership down to key benefits. And if you're a marketer, one of the concepts in marketing is you only want to have 3 benefits, 4 if you're semi-incompetent. So we have 4 because we're semi-incompetent. So basically what we do is we talk about the reasons you want to be an NMRA member is learning. You learn things because you go to clinics, etc. You get inspired by getting to go see people's layouts, see what other people have done, see people build things and say, I can do that. The friendships and relationships you get out of it. And finally, the discounts you get from the discount program that's run nationally. And what we've done is we've got that together in a banner. We've got a video that talks about it. We run that. We've got a little 32-inch monitor we set up and we run the video. And so what we've been doing is we've been doing a very specific recruiting campaign, which is if you see somebody walking 20 feet away from the booth with a bag of stuff by themselves, you basically run over to them and walk up and say, hi, are you a model railroader? And of course, if they say no, then they're probably not going to become an NMRA member. The assumption is if you're not already a model railroader, if you don't think of yourself as a model railroader, you probably won't join the NMRA. And I can walk you through that thought process. But if they say, yes, I'm a model railroader, a lot of times what we get is people saying, well, I'm kind of thinking about getting back into it, or I've just started. I'm not sure. I think I might be a model railroader. Then the next question you ask is, you say, well, are you an NMRA member? And of course, most of the time they say no. And then you can say, well, why aren't you an NMRA member? It's the best value in model railroading. And then you walk them over to the booth. You talk about all the things they'll get. You know, you talk about the events we do, the layout tours. You talk about seeing the layouts, you know, Jack Burgess's layout, all the different layouts that we have available. And then you offer them the Rail Pass, which is a $20 NMRA 9-month trial membership. And the way I always position, I say, you know, this is the best value here at the show. I mean, look around. What would $20 buy you? For $20, you get the opportunity to go see great layouts. You get to learn a lot. You get lots of great information. You get to meet a lot of model railroaders that are around you, et cetera, et cetera. And then,
Hey,
you know,
Phil,
traditionally,
yeah. I have two questions or two comments. One is the reason I brought this up was instead of hopping up and running across the floor and tackling somebody, several years ago, Pat Latoris and I took a chunk of table and we made stuff. We just sat there. I made trees and he fooled with his 12 by 12 module and that sort of stuff. And everybody in the universe stopped and wanted, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're making a tree. At that point, we effectively or not effectively said, oh, yeah, we're doing an MRA and we had the binder.
Right.
We weren't as organized as you. The second question and it was great though. Pat and I had a wonderful time. The second question is, how effective have we been in the last few things?
so let me hit the last point. So the last thing we've done, if you do marketing or sales, one of the things that you figure that you're kind of taught is you have to have a reason to create urgency of action. So what we do, and the PCR has agreed to this, and we've done it for the past couple of years, is we give them the rail pass, and normally what they do is put it in their bag, go home, it gets thrown away, and we never hear from them again. What we do is we give them the rail pass, and then we say, but wait, before you go, there's more. If you fill out the rail pass today and give us $10 in cash, the PCR will pay the other $10 of the rail pass. So we've actually recruited in the PCR about 140 members in the last 2 years. We've had a pretty significant. I love the idea of having a table with a model demonstration. It's just getting people. The other thing, by the way, is I talked to Bill. Bill is the guy that runs, I can't remember his last name. He's the guy that runs the great train show out here on the West Coast. And he is more than willing to give us enough space around our booth location, which typically is kind of in where the modulars are, where we can set up a little demonstration, you know, actually an area to do a clinic, you know, set up 10 or 15 chairs, you know, 20 chairs, have a table. We have a projector, we have a screen, we can set that up. So, you know, if we wanted to have, you know, 2 or 3 canned clinics done, you know, how to get into model railroading, you know, easy entry to model railroading, you know, building kit structures, whatever we wanted to do, we could do that at those shows. And really all we need is some folks to volunteer to put together the content, help put together the content, and then be there and put it on. And they are between us, they're a lot of fun. Basically, you know, we get free tickets to the show. We do have to pay for parking. And what we agreed from the coast perspective was that if anyone wanted to be reimbursed for parking, we would reimburse for parking. It's $15 in Pleasanton for parking. So yeah, if we'd like to get a group together and kind of talk about doing that, I will contact Bill. Definitely we can set up the tables. We'd have one table set up for our display, and we can use the other table and set it up and do modeling demonstrations on it.
I like the way you did marketing, Phil. You did it from the Steve Jobs School of Marketing, where you roll out this big thing And at the very end, when everybody thinks he's done, he stops and says, "Oh, one more thing."
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
that was
that's very effective.
yeah, it's been reasonably effective, but I think the idea of having modeling demos there, something I just didn't feel like I could personally take on at these events because I've generally pulled about 3 different ways. But Jesse, if you'd like to set up to do the modeling side of things, I mean, I contact the great trade shows, get our space, talk to Bill about where we're going to be located. Typically, I brought all the stuff down. Setup is on Friday, and you got to get everything set up and that. But if folks want to come and do demonstrations on Saturday and Sunday, and it's also if we'd like to do a couple of these, like mini clinics, the beauty is we can schedule them. We can put a sign together that says, modeling demonstration at 2:00, and then people will come back to see it. And then again, we get a chance to sell them on being NMRA members. By the way, one of the other things I learned when I did marketing for a while was those live demonstrations are incredibly effective. I joined a company that for years had a table, and it was a software company, and they were demonstrating their software, at a counter and talking to people. And the first trade show I did with them, we set up a live theater, and we basically every half hour did a demonstration of how you use the software. And they typically got 50 leads at a trade show. And that first trade show, we got about 1,100. So because people came down and sat in the seats and you could read their badges and get their numbers, you didn't kind of wait for somebody to come over. But I think it's great to do both of those things. And like I said, Jesse, if anyone else would like to be involved, let's get a committee together.
No,
figure out
we'll talk about it offline.
Yeah,
here.
cool. No, absolutely. But yeah,
And you can tell me where Pleasanton is.
it's a great environment.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And sorry about getting excited about that, but I do get excited about it because just so everybody understands why and Frank will tell you this, we had a long conversation about recruiting. I mean, the problem is really simple for our organization. If you I'm gonna use a round number because it's easier. If you assume the PCR has 1,000 members, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the churn? In business, the churn is how many customers you lose every year, because you can't grow until you've replaced the customers you lose. For example, cell phone networks used to have churn of 35%. They lost basically a third of their customers every year because when your cell phone died, you got a new cell phone from a carrier. So you go around and look at which carrier had the best deal on the cell phone. Even if you have low churn, like 5%, it's significant. If you look at our churn, if a member is a member for 20 years, that's on average, that's 5% churn. My assumption is in the NMRA, we've got to assume about an 8% churn rate, or attrition rate, if you want to use the attrition word. So that says every year about 8% of our members go away. And out here, of course, we've got the issue that we do have members that move away too. If you assume that if you recruit somebody to be a member, only a percentage of those will stay for a second year. And even in the rail pass, we're doing pretty well, but we're still under 50%. That means you've actually got to recruit 16% of your membership every year to engage with you to keep yourself at the same level. So that's why recruiting has been such a focus for us. Yeah. Ken's comment is that members don't leave, they age out.
Age out.
Yeah, no, but it's a really it's one of those things that we have to think about, because to my mind, at a national level, it's hard for national today to recruit. If you go back 30 years ago, probably when a lot of you joined the NMRA, you basically went and you bought your Model Railroader magazine, and that was the only contact you had with other modelers. And you took it home and you saw this ad for the NMRA, and you joined the NMRA, and all of a sudden you got invited to a meet and you met other modelers, and what you realized was that the only way you got to learn things was to go to clinics and things. now you look at all the stuff that's available on YouTube for modelers. You can do it. You can be a solitary modeler much more effectively today than you could 30 years ago. So anyway, enough said. But we will have two shows that we will be at from the coast perspective. We'll do both the Vallejo show and the Pleasanton show.
Yeah.
I guess the Vallejo, thinking about Vallejo is actually probably not in the coast division.
No, Vallejo is in the Redwood.
In Redwood.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk to the Redwood folks about if they want to do that, or if they want us to, who wants to drive that event. I'll have that conversation. I haven't even thought about that till just now. For some reason, because it was the date of what was the San Jose event, I kind of thought of it as being the same, but I just realized it actually moved divisions.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I was going to talk about modeling, but I think it.
Go for it.
Nah. I've lost my spirit.
I think in terms of spirit, one thing that, in terms of spirit, I think that taking off on something that Bill mentioned a couple of weeks ago about big basements and lousy weather, I'm really excited that fall and winter is finally coming, so I can get back in the house and do some modeling.
Yeah, actually, that is one of the big things. 105 weather is just not happening.
Doesn't matter how big a fan you have to try to blow the heat out. It just isn't going to work.
Yeah.
True.
Fortunately, this summer has been cooler than most, but even so, it's hard to sit down and at my work desk and when the house has to be cooled with the air conditioning blowing at it's just times I regret moving to Walnut Creek.
Ken, my question to you, Ken, is I live in Berkeley. What's air conditioning?
I know.
Yeah.
It's like my relatives in England. They never had air conditioning, but now they're having to face the fact that they need it.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to head out and probably do evil things outside. So I will wish everybody having a nice week and a couple of weeks. And I'll look forward to hearing from Phil eventually when we'll talk about train shows. Take care, all.
Hey, take care, Jesse.
Take care, Jesse.
See you, Jesse.
Have a good one, Jesse. I'm going to close off as well, I think, if that's okay. I'm going to jump over to the Sierra meet for a moment as well. Frank went over there. If anyone's interested, let me put up, I think they, I think actually it's not online, so that's not something we will be able to do. But anyway, I'm probably going to put a survey together about times to move this event to. So I'll send that out, on a Coast Extra kind of note here. Probably try to do it in the next couple of days. Is there any thought on, is Thursday night a better night to have a get together?
Well, just speaking for me, I've had a Thursday night engagement for over 30 years, so I'm not likely to cancel that.
Okay.
So,
I understand.
But I'm sure that given any night, there's somebody who can't make it. That's the problem, right?
Right.
I wasn't advocating trying to change Saturdays. I was just making a comment.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's the
You might try to alternate between Saturday morning and a Thursday night.
that's true. You can do that.
Mhm.
Is Sunday morning bad? Is Sunday morning generally bad for folks?
If it's early enough, but that's depend. Like 8 o'clock. But everyone's eyes will roll if you say 8 o'clock. But that means that I can join in and spend at least an hour, hour and a half before family stuff kicks in on Sunday morning.
Right.
So that would work for me, as an example.
What about later in the day on either Saturday or Sunday? What about, Sunday 4 o'clock kind of time frame? Is that more of a viable time?
I think that's a non-starter for most people because you're already out doing what you're going to do for the day.
Okay.
I like them early in the morning before you get tied up with things. I'd
Okay.
say
I think
let's try a weekday night sometime just for fun, see if it draws more people,
Mhm.
but make sure
Yeah.
we have content.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. What I did notice was last week, and when we had, content we could advertise, we get more folks. So I think, getting more content is always, having someone do something. And it doesn't have to be a big, one of the beauties of this is it doesn't have to be an hour clinic. It can be 10 minutes.
It's we need to really decide whether these are business meetings or like we've had today, or whether they're actual modeler meetings.
Yep. I mean, I would prefer them to be more modular meetings, quite frankly.
Mhm.
I think if I had a preference, I'd say, we do two modular meetings with, two or three, like we did last week, where we had a couple of, relatively short. Don't think either presentation was more than 10 or 15 minutes. If we had a couple, 2 or 3 10 or 15-minute sessions and discussion afterwards, that to me would be an ideal kind of modeler meetup. And then have one of these events, maybe, 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4, where we actually have more of just an open discussion. Does that make sense? Kind of as
Yeah,
a
it does.
ratio?
I mean, I'm here because I'm a modeler,
Yep.
and I put all of this organizational stuff in my past because I retired. At 71, I'm just not interested in organization, and the trials and tribulations of legal problems.
Yep.
It's just
So
something that I
yeah.
care about.
So Phil, as I'm looking at, everyone in their home on Zoom, it occurs to me that maybe Zoom meetings are an opportunity to do something that can't be done at a clinic. So at a clinic, everybody's in one place, and somebody, the presenter brings stuff in a presentation, or modeling with the masters, they bring something. But the interesting thing about doing a Zoom is, since everyone's at home, what if I can't? I'm just riffing here, but I'm looking at people like Earl or Ken, guys that are good modelers, or yourself, Phil. I'm working on this and I'm stuck.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because you're at your desk, you're in your modeling room. I'm stuck. I have no idea how to fix this. I have no idea how to repair this or make this work. And then there's 7, 8 other guys who can jump in, and you spend 10 minutes on your problem. Then another guy jumps in. I'm stuck. Anyway, it's just a thought, because it's the kind of thing you can do because everybody's at home versus in one place.
So, so one of the things that we've done on New Tracks, it's this Wednesday night thing I'm involved in, is every month we have a thing that's called My Build. So most of the shows are, 2 or 3 people doing clinics or whatever, a vendor coming in and talking about their products, that kind of thing. But what we do is once a month we have My Build, and there's a guy that runs it, Chris Course. And the way it works is you just send Chris some pictures. He puts your pictures into a slide deck, He basically presents the slide deck, and when it comes to you, you get invited in and talk about your pictures of your modeling. And so in other words, you don't have to present on Zoom. You don't have to know how to share on Zoom. You don't have to know how to make a PowerPoint. You just mail, and it could be me or it could be somebody else if somebody else would like to take it on. You mail, 4 or 5 pictures of what you've been working on, what you're, and it doesn't necessarily need to be something you've done today. It can be something in the past as well. It's a little bit like when I went to the Red meets. Red at their meets has kind of what they call a favorite model contest. So you bring in a model, and then you talk about it, and then they have a voting, and they pick the favorite, and whoever the favorite is gets a $50 gift certificate. Yeah, I'm not proposing we do the gift certificate thing, but kind of the same type of thing that, if you've got a model you built 10 years ago, you can take some pictures of the model and talk about, I built this 10 years ago. This is how I built it. This is what I liked about it, et cetera, et cetera. Does that something, I mean, I guess I'm asking everybody here, is that something that would be easier to participate in than thinking you have to put a presentation together and present it? If you just, could send in 5 or 6 pictures and talk about the pictures, and that's really all you had to do to participate. I mean, we could do that every other week. We could set that up and have that kind of a thing, once a month, on every other one of our events like this. I mean, if we did that, how many of you would be able to generate 5 slides and send in? Earl, you don't need to really comment because I know you could, but I mean, just Ken, Larry, Charlie, is that something that you say, hey, yeah, I'd like to put in 5 slides about a model I built 5 years ago or something I did. I'll do this next week. I actually did one where I went through a module I built probably 6-7 years ago and went through the steps of building a module that actually used some Woodland Scenics buildings, and how you make it look pretty nice with Woodland Scenics buildings. So when it gets done, it actually looks like a really pretty nice module with what are commercially off the shelf kind of buildings. Does that?
So I think that's a good idea, especially if you publicize it ahead of time.
Yep.
It'll be of interest to the people participating, and it'll be of interest to everyone else too. I think it's a good idea.
I could probably do something like that, 5 slides.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm willing to take it on and try it and start it. I would love for someone to say, hey, I'll take that on and do it and put the slides into a presentation, but we can tie it and we'll, I'll publicize it ahead of time. Maybe not next week in 2 weeks, but maybe the 2 weeks after that. So a month from today, 4 weeks from today, we'll pick to do one of those, and I'll publicize it to everyone that, just send in 5 pictures to that COSUP account, and we'll put them into a slide presentation and call on everybody to participate. And if anybody who submitted something to talk about what you submitted. And like I said, to my mind, it can be a model you built, or it can be, one of the guys actually put in a model that he actually got from another modeler and talked about how cool it was. So that kind of thing.
Worth a try.
Earl,
Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
Would anybody be interested in hearing me drone on for about 15 to 20 minutes on the foundations of industrial and economic archaeology?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, go ahead.
But don't do it now. Let's schedule it for.
Now, but putting a presentation.
Right. No, absolutely. I think, and like I said, just if anybody wants to do something like that, try it. Because here's the thing is, we have 300 members. The Coast Division, when I send out the Coast Extra, we have 330 email addresses I send it to. So there are 330 members that get that email. If 10%, 5% of the members, 10% of the members are interested in a topic that you bring up, that's 5 times more people than we have on this meeting today. So literally, to my mind, almost all content, there are folks that are going to be interested. So I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear about it. I think research, and that is a great topic, and and especially if it's related to the Bay Area and things that have happened in the Bay Area, and how I mean, I don't know if you did that, Ken, or somebody did a presentation a while back about railroads, around the powder plants up north, and I thought that was very interesting. So yeah, absolutely. Just write me up a paragraph, and I'll set it up, and we'll do it 2 weeks from now.
One of the, I'm unfortunately, I'm tied down right now in some rebuilding of my house problems, but I'm working on it partly through a blog site that I maintain.
Cool. No, that's good. Yeah, I think anything that is always interesting. It's going to be interesting to someone, and some interest to almost everyone. By the way, did anybody happen to see the WP video that I sent out on the groups.io? That Charles Smiley video. I don't know if anybody happened to see that. I'll put this over. I'll share this and I'll put the link up in the chat. This was so this is the Western Pacific story. It's actually an hour and a half by Charles Smiley, and it's a pretty amazing video of. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a
Get the ad.
I'm getting the beauty of an ad here.
Yeah.
But they would talk about how the WP was formed. They talk about the finances, but it's got videos from 12 different sources, they said, throughout it, and it's just an amazing history of kind of Western railroading, California railroading around the Western Pacific. So I'll put a link to this in the chat if you didn't happen to see it in the groups.io. It was, I thought it was a very cool video.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, it's Charles Smiley. I don't know if you've seen his videos on YouTube. I think it was originally an organization that had that did DVDs, and I think they moved to doing videos on YouTube now. So, well, cool. I'm gonna bid everybody adieu. I've got to go down to the fairgrounds. We have good guys this weekend at the fairgrounds in Pleasanton, so get to go down and look at lots of old fancy cars.
Everybody gets in.
All right. Thanks for setting it up, Phil. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.